Keir Starmer and Nigel Farage. One, the son of a toolmaker, the other, the son of a stockbroker. One who cares about rebuilding Britain, the others who've shown to only care about himself. But how much do you really know about their character and where they come from? Whose side are they really on? Let's start with Keir. The son of a nurse and a toolmaker, Keir grew up in a pebble-dash semi and attended state school. Now his mother battles Still's disease, a rare illness that caused high fever and joint pain.
You know, behind every front door, there's always a story about something's going on with every family. But Mum was very ill. I spent a lot of time with her in high dependency units, intensive care when I was a boy growing up. That's what we knew. We understood that, and that we might lose our mum because the condition got worse.
Now, these many encounters with the NHS give us some real insight into why he defends it with such passion. Nigel enrolled at Dulwich College, a fee-paying private school. Dulwich is considered one of the top 150 schools worldwide and one of the top 30 schools in the UK, where fees can cost 60 grand a year. Yeah, you heard that right, £60,000 a year. Now, it was at Dulwich that Nigel began to engage with Conservative ideas, becoming active within the party. Yes, Nigel Farage actually started his political career as a Tory, but is that really so surprising when you look at the Reform politicians now?
The Conservatives need reform, and why reform needs the Conservatives.
Yesterday's 20 defections of Conservative councillors over to Reform. There is the gallery of the defectors for you to have a look at.
But back to Keir. At the age of 16, he joined the Labour Party. He'd go on to pass his A-levels and become the first member of his family to attend university. In 1987, Keir began his professional career as a barrister, specialising in human rights law. He'd also served on the Northern Ireland Policing Board. These achievements would eventually lead to him being appointed Director of Public Prosecutions, the country's chief prosecutor. In this role, he'd oversee the conviction of over 150 terrorists and thousands of serious criminals. Alongside these, he was involved in seeing through some important cases that have had a big impact on society to this day. In contrast, Nigel started work in London as a commodities trader, and throughout the 80s and early 90s, you'd see him working as various brokerage firms and rocking one of those very fetching pinstripe suits of the era. In 1992, though, Farage would fall out with the Conservative Party and leave. He'd go on to found UKIP, the UK Independence Party, and in 1999 he was successfully elected to the European Parliament. He spent much of his time on the fringes there, though, occasionally getting battered by one Tony Blair for his plastic patriotism.
You sit with our country's flag. You do not represent our country's interests.
Keir, on the other hand, was also feeling a growing pull towards political life. In May 2015, he became MP for Holborn and St Pancras, just a year after he'd received a knighthood for his services to criminal justice. He'd go on to become Labour leader, calling it the
privilege of my life.
And just 4 years after Labour's worst defeat in history, he'd lead the Labour Party to a landslide victory, winning the largest majority since 2005 and ending 14 years of decline under a broken Conservative government. But before we get too into that, let's talk about Brexit for a minute.
17 million people have voted for leave.
Yep.
I don't know how many people voted on the basis of that advert, but that was a huge part of the propaganda. You're now saying that's a mistake.
We have a £10 billion a year, a £34 million a day featherbed. That is going to be free money that we can spend on the NHS, on schools, or whatever it is.
But you're not guaranteeing that that money, as promised, will go to the NHS.
You must understand, I was ostracised by the official Leave campaign and as I've always done, did my own thing.
However you voted, one thing is for certain. Farage's Leave campaign was built on the foundation of misinformation. We all remember that bus. Farage claimed leaving the EU would allow us to take back control of £350 million a week and spend it on the NHS instead. But shortly afterwards, he'd go on to admit the claim was misleading, saying it was a mistake to make that promise. But let's face it, Nigel Farage has got a bit of a history when it comes to getting numbers wrong. Only recently, the Institute for Fiscal Studies concluded that Reform's manifesto pledges simply do not add up. And during the Brexit debate, he'd claimed that a free trade deal with the EU would be the easiest thing in human history. But the stark reality was a UK-EU deal was only struck with this Labour government. Only Keir Starmer was able to secure a deal 9 years after the Brexit referendum, after years of the Tories failed miserably time and time again. Farage, though, wants to rip up this deal, roll the clock backwards and take us back to this chaos. In contrast, 500,000 more children are eligible for free school meals. Free breakfast clubs have been rolled out right across the country, giving parents and children the best start in life. Over 5 million extra appointments have been delivered on the NHS, and he's created a 10-year plan to protect and invest in it. British Steel has been saved, and wages for millions of workers right across the country have been boosted. And for Nigel, he's repeatedly advocated for replacing the NHS with an insurance-based model, making all of us pay for our healthcare when we need it.
And I think we're going to have to move to an insurance-based system of healthcare. Frankly, I would feel more comfortable that my money would return value if I was able to do that through the marketplace of an insurance company.
Farage flew across the Atlantic to call for economic penalties on the UK, pressing a foreign government to sanction our country. And he praised Liz Truss's mini-budget, which crashed the economy and raised bills for thousands of households right across the country. He also suggested one of our prized businesses, Jaguar Land Rover, deserved to go bust.
I predict Jaguar will now go bust, and do you know what? They deserve to.
And claimed to have bought a house in Clacton, in his constituency, only to later admit that simply wasn't true. And when it comes to role models, he said Vladimir Putin was the leader he admired the most. At the end of the day, the contrast couldn't be clearer. One man is delivering for Britain, the other spends his time talking it down. Only Keir Starmer is on your side.